if everyone on the phone, if you're not already thinking about semantic models and how to break Tableau out of its four walls, we should have given you some juicy nuggets here. So thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate your continued participation in DataDev Days. All right.
Everybody, have a great one.
Next up here, we have Stephen and Marlo. Are you both there?
Yep.
Hello, you two. Thank you for being here. Okay, so next up, we'll move these slides ahead a little bit. Here we go. All right, so Marlo and Stephen are here to talk about moving to the cloud. All right, and specifically the SDK and a migration app we're coming out with. I'm excited to see this. I haven't seen the app yet, so I'm very excited. I hope you guys demo.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got some screenshots in here, so you get it.
Fantastic.
Cool.
You guys got it.
Are we good to go? Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. Kevin mentioned accelerating Tableau Cloud migration. So appreciate you being here. Happy to have you join us. My name is Marlo Bromwins. I'm a product manager here at Tableau. And then Stefan here is joining me, and he is our tech lead for the Migration SDK. So I'm sure you've seen this many times, but just wanted to flash it up here again, just to remind you that this presentation contains forward-looking statements. These statements are based on our current expectations of all risk, so just don't make purchasing decisions off of this. All right, so a little bit about ourselves before we get to the agenda. So I've been with Tableau for about 3.5 years, worked in various parts of the product, and recently joined the migrations area, owning the parts that we'll talk about today. I live in Denver and love to spend time with my husband and 2-year-old daughter. And I'll pass it over to Stefan to share a little bit about himself.
Thanks, Marlo. Yeah, hi, I'm Stefan. I've been at Tableau for about 5.5 years, bounced around a couple of different products like resource monitoring tool and content migration tool. Currently working on the Migration SDK and helping our customers move from server to cloud.
Awesome. So today we're going to be going over a few things related to migration. First, we'll look at the migration overall, why are customers migrating in the first place, how to approach the move from a high level. Second, Migration SDK updates since Tableau conference. Stefan and Aaron Lauer, who was previous PM in the space, did a more in-depth look at the SDK at Tableau conference. So we'll link that at the end. So we'll kind of pick up from what was done at Tableau conference. We'll walk you through the new migration app that was mentioned and a quick demo with that. And then we'll wrap up with resources. And if there's time for Q&A, otherwise we'll answer it in the chat. So why migrate to Tableau Cloud to begin with? So when we started to sell Tableau Online, which is now Tableau Cloud, over 10 years ago, we had many new customers choose it as an easier way to get going. In the last few years, we've had a lot of interest from our server customers to move to cloud. That way they can focus on their business and not running the infrastructure that's required with server. So there's 4 key benefits when moving to the cloud that I'll cover. The first is innovation. With Tableau Cloud, you get access to the latest features as soon as they're available, rather than having to wait for upgrades or having features turned off because of performance concerns. Second is the cost. With Tableau Cloud, Tableau will manage the infrastructure for you, uptime and upgrades of your deployment, and put those cost savings right back in your pocket. Third is security. Migrating to Tableau Cloud also allows customers to entrust their security and compliance requirements to us as well. With Tableau Cloud, customers get standardized security out of the box, and we continue to provide our audits results so that you know that your data is secure with Tableau Cloud. And last is the scale. So with cloud, you can stop worrying about how expanding to new use cases or adding more users will impact that performance, because we take care of it and it's built to scale analytics around the world so that you don't have to yourself. So let me pass it over to Stefan to talk a little bit more about the Migration SDK specifically.
Thanks, Marlo. Yeah, so let's talk about the Migration SDK. So what is the Migration SDK? So SDK stands for Software Development Kit. And as the name implies, it is to write software. And what it allows customers to do is to migrate to the cloud quickly. So currently, Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud have REST APIs that allow you to download and upload your content. And those are great, and they work really well, and that's what the SDK is built off of. but the SDK itself makes that a lot faster and more reliable and more repeatable. It keeps it simple. You know, we've done a bunch of migrations with it now, both internally and customer facing and customer migrations, and it's just rock solid and works a lot better. It's open source, so if there's no special sauce here, you can look at it, you can help give us code actually and help other customers. There's a huge community around it, this DataDev community actually. We have a help channel where either myself or one of the other devs is in it, and we're here to help you. So wrapping that all up just makes it a lot simpler to move to the cloud and to write a little application. And really, the reason you want to use an SDK versus doing it yourself is because of the uniqueness of every single migration. They're all a little bit different. Everyone has different requirements, and we'll go into what the SDK's capabilities are, and we'll talk about what we can do and why the uniqueness matters. So what is the SDK? So at its core, it's a migration engine. And what that really means is the SDK and the engine handles all of the API orchestration. So I already mentioned the REST APIs that Tableau has, the download, the whole CRUD APIs, the create, read, update, delete APIs. And what Migration SDK does is put them all into a workflow and allows you to use them very simply, so you don't have to learn how to use all those individual APIs. You just say, I want to move, and it moves everything. One of the things that comes with it is that the APIs might respond with error codes or throttling codes or some version of, hey, that didn't go quite right. And a lot of those are handled internally by the SDK. So if something didn't work out right, it didn't work at this particular time because the service responded with, oh, sorry, we'll do the retry. The SDK does the retry. It's hands-off keyboard at that point in time, so you don't have to deal with it. And more importantly, it's throttle aware. So what I mean with that is, when you have software as a service like Tableau Cloud in the cloud, there are limitations how often one can do something to the cloud. And that's really to keep the health of the service up and running. It's not just for you, but also for other customers, so that you don't get taken down if someone else does something they're not supposed to. SDK is fully aware of that. So when the response code comes back with, hey, you have to wait 10 minutes, we have to slow down a little bit, then the SDK goes, great, I'll just wait 10 minutes and try again. And it's, again, hands-off keyboard for you. You don't have to worry about it. It just works. The real nifty thing about the SDK is the hooks that we have. So that's really what allows you to make a migration unique for you and your customers. What I mean with that, we have three major hook types. There's a couple other ones that we can read up on in the documentation, but the big ones are filters, mappings, and transformers. So filters allow you to filter content that you don't necessarily want to get moved over. It's really easy. You write a filter per content type, and you can filter on anything you want, any metadata that's available. So you can filter on size, you can filter on users, you can filter on anything you can really think of. So if you only wanted to migrate stuff that's been touched in the last year, just write a filter that says, hey, when was the last updated? Is it more than a year? Don't do it. Really easy. You don't have to worry about it. You write a couple lines of code, add that hook in, and you're set. Mappings are, as the name implies, they map to something else, and that is dependent on the content type itself. So if you map one user to another user or many users to one user, the SDK is aware that, okay, user A over here is supposed to be cloud user C on this side. And anything that A owned is now owned by cloud user C, and any permissions get handled correctly. So that's what that is. In a project sense, a mapping is a change of location. So it used to be that this project was under project A, and now this project is going to be under project C. You just remap them, a couple lines of code, and you're all set. And transformers, as the name implies, they allow you to transform data. And all these we have samples on our help documentation. You can come to the DataDev help migration SDK channel, and we can help write a lot of those up. It's also fully logged. So all of the REST API calls that we make with the request and the response are logged. Any internal hooks that we write are fully logged. Just essentially, logging is fully supported. I've already touched on code samples and documentation. Our website has all that. With it comes some requirements, though. It's not just a, take this and run it. You do need to be a developer. It's a software development kit. If you don't have developer in your title, chances are you're going to have a hard time. So you do need someone with development experience. The SDK is written in C#. So that's what everything is based off of, but we also have a Python implementation, if that's more your style. Both of them are fully supported, and it's all there. And of course, you need to have a general understanding of Tableau. At the end of the day, you're still moving Tableau content from a server to the cloud. You have to know what you're moving. So as Marlo alluded to, Aaron and I did a presentation at Tableau Conference. Hi for anyone that was there and saw this before. So I'm going to go through what we've updated since that conference. So in the conference, you saw me write a bunch of C# code for filters and mappings. The Python code existed at that point in time, but the Python development experience itself wasn't great. Mostly there was no code completion for Python hooks. We've added that, so making it even easier to write Python hooks. We also added the support to allow you to migrate data sources without their extract. And what that means is that the data source, as you know, is the metadata of how to connect the data, and then it can include an extract of that data. Now that extract of that data is a lot. There's a lot of zeros and ones there, right? It's not just some metadata of how to connect, it's actually the data itself, and that takes up a lot of disk space. As soon as you have to move a lot of disk space, it's a lot of zeros and ones that have to move, and it takes a while. So now we added support to say, hey, don't move it with extract. That means the data source itself moves without the extract, and then you can refresh it on the destination side, making your migration quite a bit faster, but also now requiring it some work on the destination side. And with that, we also added schedules for extract refresh tasks. So extract refresh task schedules were not available at TC. They are now, so all the schedules move. This is actually a big deal because schedules on the server side act a little bit different than schedules on the cloud side. So we have a layer built into the Migration SDK that helps convert those to the best of the ability. We also support custom views now. That was also a content type that we didn't have. So those are getting moved over now. And the manifest can now be serialized and deserialized. So the manifest is the end result of the migration. It has a list of all the content items that were moved, or all the content items that were attempted to be moved, and then the status of that move. Before, that was all saved in memory, and we had customers write their own serialization and deserialization. We had a lot of feedback saying, hey, that's really hard, everyone has to do it. So we ended up coding it, so now it's as simple as save to file and load from file, and the manifest is there. Also allows you to see it after the fact versus just being printed out. We have a few new features coming. So embedded credentials, which goes back to extract refresh tasks and the data sources, those are coming. So embedded credentials is quite difficult. You have to, if you have credentials embedded on the server side, we have to figure out how to move those securely to the cloud side. So we got that working out. That shall be released soon. We're in the final throes. The team is in the final throes of making that happen. And then we also have subscriptions coming and way more stuff. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Marlo to show off our new migration application that uses the SDK.
All right, thank you, Stefan. So we partnered with a consulting company called Improving to create the Tableau migration app. So it's a pre-built program designed to automate the migration from server to cloud. It's open source, just like the SDK, and it uses the Migration SDK as the foundation for the app. And because it's built on the Migration SDK, it does have a lot of that power, but it has limitations that I'll go over shortly. The app is ideal for basic migrations and provides a easy to understand interface that doesn't require that strong technical expertise or developer background like the SDK does itself. So like I mentioned, this app isn't for everyone and isn't for all migrations. So there are specific use cases that this app covers. And if these requirements aren't met, we still recommend that customers leverage the manual migration guide, develop your own application using SDK like Stefan covered, or leverage professional services or a partner. So there's lots of different routes that if this app isn't meant for your use case, we still can cover migrations. The use cases that are covered include using local authentication on server and Tab ID on cloud, single site-to-site migrations, having data sources supported by cloud or those supported by bridge. The content types called out here which are currently equivalent to what the Migration SDK covers. Windows OS right now, and approximately less than 100 workbooks and less than 100 users. That's not a hard requirement with the 100. This is just what we're recommending for what we think is a good customer to use this application. So on the flip side, I want to make sure we call out what's not covered to be extra clear. So right now, prep flows and virtual connection support is not supported. In addition, embedded solutions are not included. SAML OIDC authentication is not supported. And again, the data sources that are currently supported by cloud are included. Everything else is not. It's also currently recommended that large hyper extracts are not to be used. Again, any site configuration other than that single-to-single site is not supported. We are working towards supporting other operating systems. Right now we have Windows. And for those content types, on the flip side of what I mentioned, check out the help articles for the SDK, Migration SDK itself, to see which supported content types are not included right now. There is potential that we will add more, but right now you can kind of check out that help article to understand what's not included. And then, so although there's a lot here on the specific use cases covered and not covered, the app can be really powerful when it's for that right scenario. So if you're fit in these use cases, then this is a cool new app that provides that interface for you to walk through without having to have that technical expertise. So next I'll walk through the app. I do have screenshots here and callouts just to make things simpler rather than live demoing, but it really is as simple as what I'm going to show in the screenshots. Super simple app, which is really cool, again, if it's right for that use case. So first, you'll download the migration application and install it on your computer. Once it's ready to go, it will be hosted on GitHub, similarly to the Migration SDKs today, open source, free for you to download. So in the screenshot on the left, you have Tableau Server, and on the right, you have Tableau Cloud. So you don't need the open for the app to work. You can see the app is in the forefront here, but this is just to demonstrate that you will be migrating from server to cloud, so you can kind of see it visually, but you don't need them open for this to operate. So first, we're going to fill out which Tableau Server you want and which Tableau Cloud you want. So you can simply go in and grab the URI from the browser and paste it into these two fields. You'll see that once you do, the base URL and the site name automatically populate. So you can do a double check, make sure everything looks right. You grab the right site. You grab which server and you're putting it on the right site. So it's a good way to check, but it does it automatically for you. Next, you'll need a personal access token for both server and cloud. So these tokens are used by the app to programmatically access and make changes to the corresponding Tableau products to make sure you're the right person, you have the right access. So to do that, you will go into cloud and server. So at this point, you do need each of them open. You'll scroll down to go to your settings, scroll down to personal access token, add a name, create, and then simply copy and paste. So it's just a couple of steps, but these ones you do need access to each of your server and cloud to get in there. So again, you paste that in here and you'll repeat it for cloud. Similarly, the settings are pretty similar on both of them to grab that token. The last aspect you'll need to configure in the application is user mapping. So users in Tableau Cloud must have a username and form an email. However, in Tableau Server, does not have this restriction. So we've provided a couple different ways for you to provide that mapping and designated how users should be migrated if they don't follow that flow. So you can see this on the sample here on the left. You can see usernames are just by their name, and that's server. And on the right in cloud, usernames use their email address. So there's a little bit of difference there that we have to reconcile. So to address this, you have a few options. You can either provide a user mapping CSV or provide and enter a default user domain. So in the CSV, if you do go that route, you'll be able to specify the user and what their new user name should be in that email format. For the default domain, if the user is not in CSV or the user does not already have a username, it will assign that domain. So just for example, a user called Batman on server, if you do have that default domain at testdomain.com, when you move them over, they'll be automatically put in at batman@testdomain.com. unless otherwise specified in the CSV. So you can put that default, it'll automatically put people from their name into their email address. Then when those simple steps are completed, you're ready to run the migration. So see, as you can see, a couple of fields you have to fill out, ready to press run, and you can watch the progress there in the progress bar. So you'll also be able to see the details down there in the output during the migration and afterwards. So you can browse it, give you overview of the various content types that were migrated, and then also give you messages if there are errors that comes up. In addition, you can find the application logs in the log folder of where the application is run, and that will include all the REST requests made by the underlying Migration SDK. So it gives you a little bit more detail beyond what's showed in this output here. And so this is the last one. The app is done, or the migration is done, but this is just a simple screenshot to show you very simple case. There was a workbook in server, and now it's in cloud. You ran the migration and it moved this one workbook. Obviously, this is a very simple case since one workbook. Just want to kind of show you the ta-da moment of it's moved over. So quickly, I'll just wrap up with some resources here for everyone. So a couple of things you can, like I mentioned, watch the Tableau conference presentation if you do want more on the SDK. It digs in more about the use cases, what content types, et cetera. So, and there's a cool demo as well of the SDK itself. So go check that out. Slack with the migration team. If you're part of the DataDev community, you can get access to the Slack, and you can interact with us if you have questions. And we have office hours also on Thursday. And lastly, you can get started with the Migration SDK itself. That link will take you out to get access to the SDK. Again, open source, free, so check it out. And that's all we got. Thank you so much, and we'll try to answer some questions in the Q&A since I know we're at time here.
Yeah, thank you both. I appreciate it. We got a lot of questions asking about this one, so you have some good interest here. There's a lot of questions on what is supported, what's not supported. A lot of those are in URLs that they provide. Marlo and Stephen have provided already. This is a good one, and I think does Cloud offer the ability of equivalent dev UAT prod environment, or does it go in all of the same project folder? Marla, do you have an opinion, or Stephen?
Yeah,
so I'll take that one real quick. So I'm not sure what an environment is. The Tableau Server has sites that you can make, right? And on your server, you can easily make sites because there's really a restriction on that. On the cloud side, you can also have sites, but you're limited by how many you can have. So when you run a migration, you're always going to go one site to one site. And if you make no mapping changes, then the content is going to get placed where it was on the source side. So if you have 5 projects with 5 projects underneath them on the source, you're going to have 5 projects with 5 projects underneath them on the destination site. And it's always site to site. So if you're going from a prod environment, you're going to have to go to the equivalent on the other side.
Yeah, I would say our constructs are sites for that. So if you wanted to split out your environments, I would just use sites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you both. There's a ton of questions about the Migration SDK. We have office hours, it sounds like. So come on over and ask those questions right in those office hours. And before we get over to the next one, Zach, I appreciate you, and I'm glad you are seeing it. Zach says we are emphasizing more on being open sourced. Yes, that is something that we are looking to do more of, right? I said it at the beginning, we've talked about it a lot, like we're gonna break Tableau out of the 4 walls of the UI, right? We don't need you to come into Tableau all the time. We want you to be able to use our tools in a way that works for you and your tool chain and your environment. And hopefully that means that you can use some of our tooling in those spaces to maximize your investment with Tableau. Thank you for all who is answering and posting questions. I love the engagement. And Marlo and Stefan, thank you for supporting DataDev Day, being here. Tableau Cloud migrations are a big hot topic. We talked about this last time, I think in April, and people are, or May, and people are asking a ton of questions too. So thank you both.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.